Okay. Thank you, Ms. Madrigal. Good evening. For those of you who have just joined us after closed session, welcome to this virtual regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. I am Lisa Pelosi, Board President, and I would like to introduce my fellow trustees, Julio Olguin, Jeannie Kerr, Maria Haug, and Laura Simon. And I would like to introduce our student representative to the board, Ms. Macy Alvarez. Hello, Macy. I would also like to introduce our district staff, Superintendent Dr. Wilson, Chief Academic and Human Resources Officer, Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official, Mrs. Andy Stubbs, Executive Assistant to the Chief Academic and Human Resources Officer, Ms. Melissa Hansen, IT Systems Analyst, Mr. Derek Machado. Additional district and site administrators are joining us as well. District Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Mrs. Mary Allen, St. Helena Primary School Principal, Mrs. Rebecca Rocha, St. Helena Elementary School Principal, Ms. Tanya Pearson, RLS Middle School Principal, Ms. Corinne Cox, St. Helena High School Principal, Mr. Benjamin Cinto. We are delighted that you are joining us virtually this evening or on channel 27 or YouTube this evening. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.sthelena.org. Providing translation this evening is Julie Young and Vanessa Cardenas. Thank you very much. I would like to allow the translators an opportunity to explain how to use the interpreting feature on Zoom.
There is no interpretation button on here. So I don't know how that's going to work.
And right now, Vanessa, you're not in the interpreting room. Right now, you're in the public view. So both the public and our Spanish speakers can hear that you are here. I do see that the icon is on the bottom of the interpretation screen. So after you provide instruction, that will become live to all of our viewers.
Okay. So I'll briefly give an presentation of myself, I guess. Buenas tardes a todos o buenas noches. Mi nombre es Vanessa Cárdenas. Estaré yo interpretando juntamente con mi compañera Julie, tomando turnos cada una de nosotras para poder proveer esta información a ustedes en español, igualmente como en el inglés, y pueden elegir si prefieren español. Va a haber un botón abajo para que puedan elegir y escuchar nuestra voz y poder entender esto en su propio idioma.
Thank you, Vanessa. President Pelosi, just one moment so I can turn on interpretation.
Thank you.
Okay, you may proceed. Go ahead.
Thank you. You'll, excuse me. Thank you very much to our translation people to help us this evening. Okay, we'll move on to item, We're going to finish right up here. In connection with items 4A, 4B, and 4C, the board received information and provided staff with direction. Thank you. Well, for item 5B, the flag salute, if you would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 6A is public comments. At board meetings, on the screen, you will see our protocols and guidelines for public comments for items not on the agenda this evening. You are requested to state your name and address and keep your comments concise, brief, and limited to 3 minutes, please. Ms. Madrigal, did we receive any public comments this evening for items not on the agenda?
We did not receive any written public comment for items not on the agenda. We did not receive any written public for items on the agenda either. I would like to ask any members of the audience if they would like to provide public comment to hover towards the bottom of the screen and click the virtual hand where it says raise hand. and indicate that they would like to speak. So if anyone in the audience would like to speak, please raise your virtual hand now. And President Pelosi, I do have some members that I will go ahead and allow to talk.
Great, thank you.
Hi, this is Corinne Cox, principal of RLS.
Hi, my name is Michelle Martinez. I am RLS Middle School's class president, and I would just like to say thank you so much for having us. Or I might be able to enjoy it outside of school, but having the turf be accepted, because there's a lot of students that really would love the field, because sometimes you can't play on like when it's raining, when the grass is all wet or it's all muddy. It's one of the greatest things we could have in St. Helena. And thank you very much. I speak on behalf of all the students at RLS and all the staff.
Hi, I'm Larson Mora. I'm a student at RLS. I'm 8th grade. I was at the school board meeting when you voted yes for the RLS track and field, and I would like to say thank you very much for voting yes on the RLS track and field. It'll make a lot of, it'll be very good for most students, and I feel both PE teachers will like having a field for sports and activities and as a classroom.
I'm not sure whether you can hear me right now. This is Corinne Cox. Yes, thank you. It's hard to tell because my face isn't visible to myself. I just wanted to thank all of you sincerely. I know that Dr. Wilson sent you a video of the ginormous thank you card that our students made for you. There are individual thank you notes stuck all over it, and I can't wait for you guys to be able to see it. So I will be delivering it tomorrow to the district office so that the public and members of the board can take a look at all the lovely comments that our students made. They were so heartfelt, and they are really excited, as are all members of the RLS staff. We all understand what a tough decision it was and how much money was involved, and we are grateful. Thank you so much.
Any further additional public comments? No? Okay. Thank you, Principal Cox, and to the RLS students for coming on this evening and to share their gratitude. We appreciate that. Okay. We'll continue back. One moment. I need my script. Thank you so much. Great. We'll move on to item 7A, the presentation by the student representative of the board. Excuse me, Macy Alvarez.
Hello, everyone. So this is my first virtual report, so I'm going to have it open on my slide and see if it works. And I just want to give a heads up, my Wi-Fi is very poor as well, so hopefully I can withstand this report. So the first school I visited was my own school, St. Helena High School. And we had some very exciting events going on for our seniors and juniors because Mr. Cinto worked with the city to get some students involved in city council to give a student voice, which I've spoken about before. So 7 students applied for the position, we were very happy about that. And interviews were conducted last week, and I am still unaware of who exactly was selected. I believe 2 students were selected. I will have an update on that for our next meeting. So that will be very exciting. And looking forward into second semester, students arrive back on campus. Obviously, Omicron was a bit teeter-tottery in regards to attendance, but everyone's looking forward to receiving college acceptances and postgraduate opportunities for the seniors. And leadership is currently in our service and shine semester. And our main goal is to have a school-wide improvement of connectedness among different students. So before winter break, we did an outdoor rally that involved the whole school. We had hot chocolate and the band played, the choir sang. So that was a good way to get all of our school involved. And our student congress meeting, which is originally supposed to happen in January, has been pushed back to February. in regards to people missing school for Omicron. And then I actually was unable to visit the RLS this month, but I was able to communicate with Ms. Cox over email, and I got some information about their sports teams. They've been doing great accomplishments. On the left, you can see a group of volleyball girls after their game, and they were very happy to hear about the board's approval of the turf and the track for their spring sports seasons and their soccer season. And then on the right, I have boys basketball, which is a great picture of them reaching up for the hoop. And they had an 8-2 record the last time I spoke to Mrs. Cox, and they had 2 games left, and they all felt very positively about their next 2 games. And then continuing on with the RLS, Mrs. Kurt's 6th grade journalism class has had a lot of their works in the St. Helena Star, so getting some recognition for their hard work in their journalism class. And again, due to the Omicron variant, the dance that was originally scheduled for January 21st has been canceled and is looking to be rescheduled to a little bit later in the year once the surge calms down. And they will be having their annual wellness fair in a week from today in cooperation with the St. Helena Hospital, and all of the guests are vaccinated before they arrive on campus, and 1 guest will be virtual. And on to St. Helena Elementary School, Mrs. Pearson would just like to thank the board on behalf of the staff and students, along with parents, of being very thankful for the efforts to manage the Omicron variant and the coronavirus as a whole, with the at-home testing kits provided by the district at the beginning of the week, last week, and having a lot of supplies, air scrubbers, masks. They just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for tackling it so appropriately. And then I spoke to 5th graders this month about student council because their elections are coming up. So I asked them, what do you want to try and tackle once elected, or what do you want your student representatives to do for you? So I had interviewed 3 different students, and a student named Ezekiel said he would like to help the 4th and 3rd graders with math and reading skills. So to try and get the 5th graders to help the younger children be prepared for 5th grade. And then June and Soren both had very similar interests. They want to open the library back up during recess because they enjoy reading and playing computer games, playing chess, checkers during their breaks and lunches. So they want to see if there's any possible way that they can work with their fellow student council on trying to find an alternative or find a way to open that back up again. And then I have another slide for the elementary school. So they focused on their art projects this month, setting goals for 2022. So on the left, I have Mrs. Buchanan's 4th grade class. They drew, it's kind of hard to see, but they have a little My Year in Review packet. So they reflected on 2021, and now they're looking forward to goals in 2022. And then on the right, I have the 5th grade wing indoors hanging up their 2022 goals, which are little flat books that they colored and decorated to be personalized. And then finally, I went to St. Helena Primary School, and I got to take a look at 2nd grade specials classes, which I hadn't done before. So on the left, the 2nd graders are in their PE class with Mr. Martin, and they just did a few laps around the blacktop. They had a very hard effort while running, and then they were able to do a post-jog yoga stretch, which they were very engaged in. And then on the right, I have their music class, which is in the picture, they are doing an Irish dance to a song called Irish Stew, which was super fun to watch. They were super excited. They were doing 16 count practice as they were walking around and clapping and jumping. So that was really fun to watch. And then finally, I have Maestra Rubio's Spanish class. So I found it very impressive that all students used hand sanitizer as they entered the classroom. And they also remained talking in Spanish throughout their whole class, and they would take attendance and say presente when their name was called. And in the photos, the students are singing and dancing to a song, their welcome song, as they enter the classroom. So it was kind of like a I sing, you sing kind of song that they were doing as they entered class. So that was my report. Thank you for listening. Do I have any questions or comments?
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions for Macy?
I don't have any questions, but thank you very much, Macy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You do a great job. Get
You.
us some great photos as well to go along with your report. We appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. And thank you. All right, we're going to move on to communications and start with item 8A, which is the board member report. And that I'm going to call on Trustee Maria Howe.
Yes. This was my first. This is my first report of being assigned to a school after 2 years of not being assigned to a school. So I really am. I first want to go out and say I'm really happy that I'm assigned to the primary school. I've never been assigned to it before. It's such a great age. I know that it's some of the most time challenging ages for parents. So I appreciate the time that the parents that I spoke to took to speak to me. My report is a little bit different. I did not visit the school in person. Right now, I decided to attend the PTG meeting by Zoom. The PTG meeting for January was well attended. According to other parents that I talked to, it was a Zoom meeting, and they said that there was a very good attendance, and it seemed that almost all the class reps were there, and as well as all of the almost all of the executive board of the PTG for the elementary school and the primary school. So both principals gave a report out on the school, mostly focusing on the protocols that were going to be in place for the new variant with the start of this school returning in January. And the meeting lasted about a half an hour. And then I spoke after the meeting. I spoke to several grade rep parents at the primary school, and I came away with 3 main themes. First, with one parent, I spoke about the social emotional support that their child is getting. This is a family that lost their home in the glass fire. And you can only imagine how difficult it is for a family of children that are very young to go through something so difficult. And the parent was very, very pleased with the social emotional support that her children are getting. The next topic I want to talk about is equity. I spoke with 2 other parents that their children both are receiving extra assistance because they have special needs, and they're very happy with the services for special needs students that they are receiving at the district, and especially at the primary school. I would like to actually mention one teacher by name because she did receive so much praise from this parent, and that is Magna Guerrero, the TK teacher. The parent was just so grateful for all of the really extra assistance in helping this new family navigate this the resources available for children of special needs at that young age. And this parent also said that all the teachers are really aware of getting the resources that children need with special needs. And so this is, I think, really speaks to our priority of making education at every age equitable, making sure that those children that need extra assistance in certain areas really receive it, and that the teachers are aware. And I just really want to say thank you to our teachers for always stepping in for their students' needs, especially when it's been such a difficult time the last 2 years. The third topic I want to talk about is communication with stakeholders. The parents that I spoke with are very appreciative of Principal Rocha's monthly newsletter, and I would suggest that all of us as board members go to the primary school website, and you can click on read the newsletter and get a really good idea of what the parents are receiving and also what's going on at the schools there. One of the parents that I spoke with said that she uses that newsletter and refers to it throughout the month. We have one of the interpreters waving their hand. I needed to slow down. I'm so sorry. I should be more aware. Okay, and that's about it. I do have some feedback that I will be speaking about from the parents at the primary school when we get to item 10A of tonight's meeting.
Thank you very much, Maria. I appreciate that. Does the interpreters need a little more time? Okay, maybe I'll move forward. Item 8B, we're going to move on to the superintendent subcommittee reports. We have 2 committees. We've got the Monrovia, which met this morning, and wellness. And we'll start with Monrovia since it's listed first. Julio, would you like to speak a little bit, and then I can do some as well?
Sure. So Monrovia, yes, we met this morning. For the community that's not aware of what Monrovia is, it's different organizations and community in the community get together, and essentially it's a great opportunity to share information, and we kind of try to keep it to three kind of big points that you want to share out with your organization. So today we had the city of St. Lena was on there. The mayor spoke, Mayor Ellsworth. Probably the biggest news out of that from him was that Mark Presswich, the city manager, he announced, or the mayor announced that he's actually leaving after 5 years of service in St. Lena. He just talked a lot about the work that he's done here with in terms of the city planning, and just basically said that he left St. Lena in a better position than what it was 5 years ago. And I've had the opportunity to work with Mark in some different meetings and things of that nature, and he's been a great a great piece of St. Lena, doing a lot of the work here. And so we do we're going to miss him, but definitely he has improved our city, so we wanted to recognize him. They talked a little bit about the focus on fire safety. That's something that's happening right now within the city. The mayor described kind of taking the opportunity where, because we haven't had any fire and it's cooler months, to kind of prepare and work on our emergency plan. So he talked a lot about some community meetings that are going to be happening in the near future, and just kind of adding structure and organization and being more proactive during fire season. Then he mentioned Mark Presswich mentioned the water or the drought situation in St. Lena. He said that right now we're currently out of stage 2 water emergency. We're in stage 1, and he mentioned that we needed rain between here and April 15th to move out of that stage 1 and kind of be out of the drought. So we're hoping that we'll get some rainy weather here in the next few months. As far as the Chamber of St. Lena, they talked about their marketing campaign to visit Napa Valley. Stephanie talked about just how they've been working with a third party to kind of promote the Napa Valley, and how it still continues to be one of the #1 locations to visit. So they were excited about their new marketing campaign. She talked about their work with the distribution of N95 masks to different businesses. And I think they were in search of a new space, I guess, or they're going to be moving buildings or moving out of that building. And so they're looking for a new location. We had the CIA Culinary Institute talked about the kind of what they're doing in terms of their enrollment. He said the enrollment is strong, which is a good indicator of coming back even through COVID. And he talked a little bit about COVID and how they've, leveled or how they've been able to mitigate the spread within their students and their staff. And so he said basically everything's open, the restaurants and school, and then they're starting to reopen with the tours again. And then finally was a Blue Zone with Joaquin as the executive director. He talked similar about how things have shifted. I think most of the organizations, that was one of the common themes where we all kind of have shifted to online and virtual. So he talked about that. He did mention about the Blue Zone certification. So the different businesses that are working on that. He mentioned Sunshine is close to getting or close to being the first grocery store here in the Napa Valley that's going to be certified as Blue Zone. He talked about working with other grocery stores in the valley, Calmar, and I think he said Ranch Market in Yountville. And then he's working with 5 other restaurants as well to get them to be certified. And one exciting thing he mentioned as well was a walking school bus. He's I don't know if he gave a date, but basically a walking school bus from Stonebridge to RLS. And he talked about, I think, potentially doing that, I think, next month. So that'd be exciting to hopefully maybe myself participate in that walking school bus. So I think they're doing good work to promote healthy lifestyle. That's pretty much it for Monrovia, unless you have something to add, Lisa.
No, other than just plugging St. Helena Preschool for All, that you gave a report saying that enrollment was strong. You have 31 students, 19 from St. Helena, 6 from Calistoga, 6 from Angwin, with interest and applications still coming in. You talked about your fundraising success and how you were really happy that was due in large part to the parents themselves soliciting donations, and that you had a nice strong turnout for your program. So that's all great, Julio. Thank you for all that work you do there. And then I think we just Dr. Wilson gave a report, but we're going to get her report here shortly. So we'll move on to the Health and Wellness committee. So, and I believe is that I can't see the bottom of that. I do believe it's either Trustee Kerr or Olguin. Jeannie, would you like to perhaps talk this time?
Sure. And Julio, just add anything that I have left out. Okay, and I'll focus in on the first 2 and 3. How about that? Okay. So we met yesterday via Zoom. And it seemed like there was a couple members that normally were in attendance, but overall we had a good attendance. We started out with the introductions, and then we had a report by our student representative, Sophia Stanfield. And all I can say is that she is very busy putting things together and creating new types of fun things at the high school. One of the things that she has been organizing the last couple of months was a suicide prevention training, which has unfortunately been canceled due to the kind of the pandemic spread right now. And this was was a partnership with Teens Connect and Mentis. So they're about ready to reschedule that one soon. They're hoping that will be in either February or March. She is beginning to plant the wellness garden there at the high school, and that's they're hoping to get the planted really kind of starting now and get it all planted in the spring. And then she's also she's also involved in a mental wellness club, and that's proceeding as well at the high school. And more information about that so stay tuned for that one there. We also, Miss Allen talked to us about the SEL, the Social Emotional Learning NAPA Coalition. And this sounds really interesting. It's first time that I believe it's the first time that our district has been involved in the coalition, but I think it's a newer coalition. And it's a coalition with Terry O'Leary, Dana Saban, Mary Allen, and Sean Garrity. And what it is it's a coalition that brings all of the Napa County schools together, the districts, and to talk about the SEL best practices and what's been successful, and just ways that we can kind of collaborate together in order to really bring the best to our students. They're each one of them are kind of learning from each other as far as strategies and things that work within the classroom and in different grades. And they're really, and it feels to them as kind of like a very much a professional development opportunity for them. They start the meeting with like part of the thing is like 3 things that they do at their meetings, and then what our professionals do in the classroom is they do a connectivity activity at the beginning of the day with their students, an engagement type of project, and then a closure. So it's actually it's very well prompted in a way in kind of what they're doing. And then Mary Ellen also talked about the vertical articulation day last Wednesday, which was the Wednesday Wellness. And Julio, if you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, so the vertical articulation, the district provided an opportunity for our staff, the entire staff, for 1.5 hour time frame for the teachers and staff, everyone to participate in one of the activities that they had planned or scheduled. The staff could choose from things like swimming, yoga, cooking, basketball, self-care, meditation, and I think one of the most popular ones was the walking. I think the district provided some different, a map with different, different distances and things that they could walk and figure out with the group. So that was one of the most popular ones. I think the best part of that meeting was just hearing the feedback from the principals and the staff that were on the Zoom call. They just shared that they said, they were very grateful that there was the best vertical articulation that they've done. So it's just great to see that our district is providing that and taking that as a really high priority, not just for our students, but for our staff, because that is really important to have our staff taken care of. And I think one of the parents, mentioned the idea of providing that for our students, if we could fit that within their school day and offer that to them, which I thought it was a cool idea to maybe, if we could be able to do that. And I know missing time is not something that we want to do with our academics, but definitely would be a good thing to look at. So I think that was pretty much, and then the student panel subcommittee. So that was, we had a subcommittee that met since our last meeting. They created they came up with some questions, which they presented. I think it was about 6 questions. The questions focused on vaping, marijuana, and alcohol use. And so they presented those to the full committee, and we provided some feedback. I think overall, it's gonna be for 9th graders and 11th graders. That's gonna be where the students will be selected from. And I believe Mr. Heller mentioned that he is gonna try to hold off a little bit to maybe late February or early March, so that he can get the student, or so we can meet, or they can meet the students in person rather than Zoom. So I think that was the final thing that happened in that meeting.
Thank you very much. Is there any public comment on that on those reports? Or trustees, any questions? Okay, well, item 8C, we'll move on to St. Helena Teachers Association report to the board. This is a written report. I'm going to assume that Mr. Farrell is not in our audience to read this. We'll just take this as a written report. Would that be correct?
Mr. Farrell is in the audience. However, he would prefer just to have a written report for the month of January.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much for that. Is there any public comments? Can you scroll down a little bit for me, please? Thank you. Trustee, okay, that's great. It's a written report. We'll take it from there. Sorry, moving on to 8D. I would also like to remind the board that this is a written report submitted to us by the California Schools Employees Association, CSEA. Thank you. We'll move on to item E, which is the superintendent's report, and I'd like to call on Dr. Wilson.
Yes, good evening, President Pelosi and board members, members of the community. So recently we did receive updated guidance from Napa County Office of Education, Napa County Public Health and the California Public Health Department, which really lent us to bringing our emergency team back together again. And I want to remind all of you and members of the public that the emergency team is a vital group that includes all of the executive cabinet, our principals, our director of food and nutrition, our director of aquatics and facilities, union presidents, both Brandon Farrell and Christina Avina, our board president and vice president in the event that president is not available, and then representatives from our school sites, members who are on the parent-teacher groups. And so last week we did meet with them to review the new guidance, updated guidance. The individual contact tracing has become very challenging for all school districts across the state of California. The time that it was taking was becoming less reasonable and unattainable. And with the California Public Health Department's fundamental belief that children need to be in school and that we need to have schools open as much as possible, there are some changes to the way that we look at students who are potentially exposed. One of the biggest changes is somebody is exposed whether they're vaccinated or they're unvaccinated. So all students are treated the same in that regard. And parents are now receiving messages if their child was in a classroom where there was an exposure, if their child was on a team where there was an exposure, and any kind of an event within the school district. And it would be that entire team or that entire classroom, as opposed to previously those students who sit within 6 feet of that particular student who test positive for COVID. So what is shown on the screen will be live on the website tomorrow. This is an update to the update. The initial document had a different color band to denote a new update. There are a couple of changes here that are important. If a student has symptoms, they do need to quarantine for 10 days unless they have a negative PCR or rapid antigen test, or a doctor's note indicating that they do not have COVID, that they have another illness. And what we want to do to help our families with this, the testing that was happening during the school day is no longer required. And in fact, what CDPH is recommending is that if you are exposed sometime between day 3 and 5, you test to determine whether or not you have been, that you are positive. And so we realize that finding tests is not only challenging, it's also can be expensive. And so we have arranged with our staff and our staff nurse to offer testing and rapid antigen testing for any of our students and our employees on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at St. Helena Primary School from 3 o'clock till 4 o'clock, and then at RLS from 3:45 to 4:45. So students from any of the 4 schools can go to either of those 2 sites for testing after their school day is over. If they have not been put into the system to have testing occur through primary care, we do need their parents to go on the link that Erica is pointing to right now and register their students for that testing. This, again, this testing is for our students and for our employees, and it's to keep students, get students back in school as quickly as possible, and to help our employees get back to work also. We do ask if you have symptoms, if you're likely with COVID positive symptoms, that you would use N3 Labs or one of the other labs that you can find on the Napa County Public Health website to be tested. This is really more about surveillance testing for our students and return to work testing for our employees. I also just wanted to thank all of our employees and our team for putting together Wellness Wednesday. That was an exciting event, and I appreciate Trustee Olguin talking a little bit about it, and I'm glad to hear that the wellness meeting had good feedback. Unless you have any questions, board members, that concludes my report for the evening.
Any questions, trustees?
I have a quick question about the after-school testing. First of all, just wanted to say thank you that there is so much testing provided to the students and staff after school. I know how hard it is to find a test and get a test sometimes through the county, so thank you. So I noticed it said asymptomatic. Could a child who was symptomatic and is no longer symptomatic but would like to return to school use that testing after school?
If they are no longer symptomatic, that is the definition of asymptomatic.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. And I trust all of you are also aware of the federal government website where you can log on to order 4 test kits per family. That link went live yesterday, and all families can order 4 test kits for at-home use.
Dr. Wilson, clarification for anybody who may be watching, when they, for using the antigen test, they can use obviously a home kit test and rely on those results on whether or not to come back. It doesn't have to be from a medical doctor or office, correct?
For our students, yes. And they need to either photograph it or bring in that test when they return.
Great. Thank you so much.
Good question. Thank you, President Pelosi.
Trustees, anything else for Dr. Wilson? Oh,
I just do have one more thing.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
My apologies.
No, it's not your fault. I just would be remiss. As I was thinking and processing how complicated this is, and the protocols change rapidly, Nurse Kate Scudero and I will host a webinar next Wednesday, the 26th, so the one day where we're not doing testing after school. We will host a Q&A where she and I will spend a little bit of time giving information about the protocols and any updates that have changed on Wednesday of next week from today, and then host a Q&A, and we'll have that in both English and Spanish, and we will record those and post them to the website once we've completed those meetings, in the event that somebody would like to listen in and cannot attend the live meeting. That's again next Wednesday, the 22nd at 4 p.m. And as soon as the link is live, it will be posted on the district website.
Just the 26th. I think you said the 22nd in error. January 26th, next Wednesday, right?
January 26th, 2022.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Now, any other further questions for Dr. Wilson, trustees? No? Okay.
No, thank you.
All right. We'll move on. Thank you so much, Ms. Madrigal. Items 8F through I are all the principal reports for their respective schools. As always, we thank our principals for putting together these notes for us to read that highlight what is happening on their campuses based on our 5 district priorities. So again, thank you. I encourage everybody to read these, whether you're parents, staff, community member, they contain a lot of great information. Okay, we'll move on to item 9A, which is the consent agenda. Thank you. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, the item will be considered under discussion action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Were there any written comments submitted by members of the public?
There were no written comments submitted.
Thank you. Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. As most are in favor of the motion, I will request that Dr. Wilson request a roll call vote by Dr. Wilson, please.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Ogeen?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Item 10A, this is communication with the St. Helena school community. Excuse me. Thank you so much. Actually, Erica, can I ask you one more time to just share your screen for just a moment? I wanted to just read that background information briefly. This discussion that the trustees will hold is in response to a written public comment submitted at the December 16th, 2021 regular meeting of the board. The board requests an addition of the agenda item to discussing the governing board's communication with the community. So we will now engage in that. And I'm sorry, Trustee Kerr, it looked like maybe you were going to start. So if you'd like to go ahead, that'd be great.
Sure. So prior to the December board meeting with the public comment, there was also a parent that reached out to me to meet just to discuss different, just a little bit of concern about communication and ways that we might be able to improve. So with that, at the time, President Haug and myself met with her on December 8th, and we had a very long discussion. And she was not, and she wanted to make sure that she wanted us to make sure that it wasn't just her that was concerned about this, but she was representing a lot of other parents, and which is certainly factual because she has always been one of our very much involved in our school community for many years. So for me, it was important to hear this information and just to remind our community, we as a board cannot just informally discuss or even have a conversation about any kind of district related or student related or school related things unless the 5 of us are together. And so that's why I requested it to be on the agenda, because this would be an opportunity for all of us to be able to discuss maybe our thoughts about it and maybe some ideas going forward.
Thank you. Before we proceed, my oversight in making like a little Zoom glitches here and getting in my groove here, I need to ask for public comment on this agenda item. So I apologize to our public, and Trustee Kerr, I'm sorry that we'll have to we'll come back to the discussion in a moment.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? If so, please hover towards the bottom of your screen and click your digital hand. It appears that there's no public comment at this time, President Pelosi.
Thank you so much. All right. So trustees, we can either kind of work off of Jeannie's comments, have a discussion, ask some questions if you'd like, but this is really kind of our discussion at this time. And from this discussion, perhaps we'll be giving direction to Dr. Wilson and staff on what we would either need more information or something specific. So Jeannie, do you have anything else you would like to add on to your?
Thank you for asking. Yes, because I do. What I neglected to say is, and I think that probably one of the maybe one of the biggest concerns and maybe questions, not knowing, is the Assembly Bill 361 that guides us as far as our meetings right now during the pandemic, and it's about teleconferencing meetings. And it was maybe there was concern that with us being in person, the question was, why weren't we able to? Would we be able to have meetings where our parents and community is able to Zoom in as we're doing in-person meetings? So that was quite a bit of the discussion there, just because I think that families feel a little bit uneasy still coming in, and maybe difficult with their things going on in their home right now, to be able to come into the meetings. And I personally appreciate that a lot, because I think that it's very important for us to hear from our parents and from our community. And I certainly would not want to make it difficult for that not to happen.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I think just one tagline, and then we'll just move through the trustees. So Jeannie, I know that you attended a webinar the other night as well, where they talked about that AB 361, and school boards across the state obviously have adopted that in this particular time. I mean, they were the lawyer that presented was clear to tell us that we're not required to hold Zoom meetings when meetings can be held in person.
That's correct.
It's a bonus, but there is no mandate or law requiring school boards to do that. He said, yes, it's great. As to you just said, I mean, it's kind of, there's an equity portion to it in providing that opportunity. But just for anybody listening to us and watching us discuss tonight, that is just, we are not mandated by law to do so. So. And
I do want to add additionally is Trustee Haug and I we ended at the California School Boards Association. It was a policy workshop, and that the AB 361 was very much the hot topic. And there's a lot of gray within that code too, within the that assembly bill, and even as much as where questions were being asked and the attorney that was there was unsure what the answer was. Okay. So I do want to state that there's a lot of gray within there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Trustee Howe, would you like to go next? And
there's a couple of points that just following on the in-person versus Zoom meetings. It is something that districts are dealing with throughout the state. And for those districts that are still doing Zoom meetings, there are parent groups that are demanding that they be held in person. So, right. so there is, there's always going to be having to find a balance between serving the community and doing it within the resources that we have, and making it so that it actually functions as a meeting where we can get our work done. So there's a lot of things to balance out, and I know it's not easy. But as far as some of the other topics that we addressed, I did speak to some of the parents at the primary school, and there is some very easy things that I think that we could do to improve communication between the board and especially new parents at the primary school. And one would be to have a mini orientation of board docs for new parents, whether they're new parents at the primary school or new parents entering our district at another school. Maybe just a one-page sheet of how to access a training video, and then maybe just describing a walkthrough of how a meeting is conducted, how you find things through board docs, how you find the agendas, and just maybe an explanation of how to participate in a board meeting. And that could be part of a welcome packet, I think, at any school. And that was something that idea was met with a lot of enthusiasm by the parents that I spoke to, because a lot of them not everyone understands what the board does and how we meet and the rules and guidelines that we must follow. And if there could be just a brief explanation of the school board and how to participate in meetings and how to get, there are online tutorials for board docs, maybe a link that could show parents how to navigate it so that they could, on their own, in their own time, do a board docs tutorial. And then the other thing that I heard from young parents is they just don't have time to read through the entire board agenda and to follow everything and to actively know all that is going on. So there was a very positive reception to the idea of us having some sort of board brief or board synopsis or meeting synopsis for the public at the end of meetings, so that people know what was passed, what resolutions were passed, what projects were approved, and I see that a lot of boards do this. They do it as I've heard things called the board corner, where you just have the most recent events covered at the most recent board meeting. There is I would encourage all of us to look at Carmel Unified. They have a board brief that is a one-page PDF that just outlines everything that happened in that meeting, just really succinct. And then it says when the next meeting is being held, so that parents have it on their calendar, what was talked about and when the next meeting is.
Maria, do you know if that is created by the board itself? Do you have any idea?
Well, I spoke to Mary Lou, and we don't want to give our staff any more work right now because it's just too much. So it is. I think that we could. I would be willing to do something. It's something that we could rotate. It's something that maybe the vice president or clerk could do. I'm open to anything, and I'd be willing to take a turn or even write it. We're here at every meeting. It would be quite easy for any of the five of us to write something out that could be put in a document that could go out to all families.
Yeah, I would agree with you that it probably is, and I'm also in agreement that not putting any more on staff's plate about that. Obviously, I haven't had, I mean, we can talk about that further after everybody else has spoken, or take that a little more, diligently and talk about that actually to put it into action,
I don't have anything else. I think that we can hear from other board members now.
Okay. Laura, would you like to go next?
Sure. Just relating to what Trustee Haug said about educating young families or any families in the district that want to know more about the board, I was thinking that I like the idea of putting it in the packet. Also, sharing that information briefly at back to school nights. Since our back to school nights, we get strong attendance at all the school sites. I was also thinking that perhaps it would be nice to add in the school board link a frequently asked questions page for families where they can go to and see some, questions that they may have, and hopefully their questions will get answered there before they pursue trying to seek out staff for answers. And I'd like to know more about, not tonight, but when we have some more time, I'd like to be educated on understanding why Zoom it has its challenges, having a hybrid meeting. Because I just don't know, and I just want to understand more about why there are those challenges. That's what's come to mind right now. And also reviewing the minutes, if we could have them, I understand that board docs doesn't translate, but a way for them to be translated. So we do have them in English and Spanish, I think would be helpful for the community to increase communication. And those are just some thoughts that I have. Thank you.
Julio, would you like to go next?
Sure. I think most of my ideas were taken, but that's all good. I'll come up with something. In terms of the Zoom, I think if overall we're trying to increase parent participation and just community participation. I think if it's something that we're able to do, just like as we do sometimes with the subcommittees where we have people Zoom in, and whether we're meeting in person, I think that's good to at least offer that and provide it, especially right now with the way things are. Just because again, I don't know how many viewers we have right now on channel 27 or on YouTube, but I mean, definitely it's always, there's always ways to improve that. So if that's kind of our goal, which I mean, to me, it is important to get that community involvement. I think that I would be in support if we're able to do that. In terms of new parents, I think I'm in agreement with a one pager, but I think even before that, it's a lot of it has to do with educating parents. I mean, I know a lot of parents that probably don't even know what school board is, and so I thought kind of maybe if I know it would maybe take some staff time, or maybe we could participate in, but maybe creating like a video, just a short video of what we do, what the school board does, and not go too much into detail about. And obviously, if someone's interested, then there's a link to the website or to our website where you can get more information on how to access the agenda. But I think first off, people need to kind of know what the school board is. Short video so that people don't watch it. And I had the same idea with providing that back to school night. I think that's a good opportunity parents are already there. And the teachers can mention, what the school board is and what we do in a nice short way. I think one of the other topics that came up through just looking through that email and some of the conversation that Trustee Kerr had with this parent was about the text message. And receiving that reminder. I think that if that's something that our district is, that we've already kind of worked into into the district where we're texting, we receive texts about the COVID guidelines, testing, meal kits, surveys, parent night, even from our own individual schools. I get texts from, the middle school where my kids are at about, school dance or, walk and roll to school day. So I think that if it's something else that we can remind parents and send that out, and it's not that hard to do, then I'm for that as well, just because, again, we can remind parents that maybe forget about even though it's on the third Thursday of every month, but just, I mean, people are busy and get caught up in, after school activity. And so I think it's an easy way to just check and say, okay, yeah, there's going to be a board meeting, and then even just attach the link to the agenda. I think we can do that, and that would be a good way to kind of just incorporate more of the community. That's, I think, pretty much all that I had with this item.
Thank you. So
I just want to follow up on what Julio said. And so the text messages, I specifically asked parents this, and it was 50-50, because some parents said they're already getting too many text messages. And I would say just as many parents said, I definitely want the text message. So I think that we have to maybe err on the side of providing too much information, knowing and sending the text messages, but recognizing also that some parents do not want a reminder. And I'm just giving voice to those parents that I talk to while we have this discussion, and recognize, yes, it is another text reminder, and yes, you do get a lot, but we really do want your input in our meetings, and that's why we're sending this reminder. And I'm just trying to verbalize what I heard and give those voices recognition. But at the same time, I think that we do really want parent participation and knowledge and awareness of our meetings.
Thank you. So that kind of segues into one of my statements, and I've said this more than once, is that I'm a firm believer that communication is a two-way street. The information has to be made available to our parents and our stakeholders, but I feel like there's an equal responsibility, on behalf of those stakeholders as well, to seek out the information that they find is important to them. But again, the information has to be there. So, and I agree, put it into small, everybody is overloaded with information, right? So it needs to be in small, digestible chunks, and is it bullet points? Is it a video? I like the video idea. I like the FAQ page. I think that's also great. And I mean, and back to the two-way communication, I hearkened back to all the years that I sat on parent PTGs. And one of the things that I did, either in the role of like president or vice president, was, we put out an email to our parents, to the grade reps, to email the grade reps to say, these are kind of some highlights. Board meeting is happening. This is on the agenda. So it would be nice to have a little collaboration and teamwork between the parent groups as well and the board. I do think I am a believer that the parent group presidents a board agenda should be on their radar. It should come with their role on a parent group. Scour it. Maybe when they have their board meetings, they talk about it with their board and say, these are coming up. This is when the meeting is. And then it's a quick email that gets sent out as well. I mean, it's all about teamwork, right? We saw what the one-page flyer looked like that one of the parents did, and that was great. I mean, if that can get shot out through the school, I mean, that's what we used to do back in, I'm particularly speaking to RLS and high school days. And, the school was kind enough, we presented it, they sent it out. And I thought that was a good example of teamwork on that. But how I approached this agenda item as well was, I looked at several other websites, school district websites. I wanted to see what was translated on their sites, what wasn't. And surprisingly, a lot is not translated as in terms of agendas, meeting minutes and whatnot. So there's definitely room for improvement for all across the state, obviously, to work on that kind of translation opportunities for all stakeholders. And that's something that we can ask the district staff to look into. Like, what does it look like? Do we need to hire a translator to focus on just some of these documents, to do agendas and minutes, things like that? Is it a full-time position? Is it a part-time position? I mean, I think if we're trying to change the communication game, that's maybe where we might need to start looking at some of those kind of pathways, because everybody is we don't want to ask any more of our staff. Our parent group people are volunteers as well with families and jobs. So maybe that's something we discuss as a board. Do we need to hire a position to take care of that kind of translation? Let's see, I talked about the PTG sending out monthly emails. One of the things that was made in that public comment was about improving board outreach. I'd like to know, what do our stakeholders think that looks like? Because we can go out as individuals, but as we all know too, we have to be concerned. We have to be careful, because if you show up to something, a parent group meeting or some other kind of event, it has to, if people don't know how the governing body works, there's always a risk. Well, trustee so-and-so was here and this is what they said, which is happening at the district level. And then all of a sudden it becomes like, well, this is what's been said. This is what the board's doing. So there's always that gray area that we have to be careful about how much outreach we do. Having a presence and being involved, of course, but if the outreach is just about education, like what we do, what we can do, what we can't do, I like Julio's idea about that, about a video. I think that's great. It doesn't have to be long. It can be kept up on the website. People can click on it when they can. And I think, let's see, I think that was one of the, that was my main kind of points on it. I'm also in favor of, if we can make our meeting Zoom accessible and it allows increased participation, I would be in favor of having that happen. But I think where our direction now goes to is asking Dr. Wilson and staff to say what is needed to make that happen for us in perpetuity, what kind of costs are associated with it, whose job responsibility does it become? And it sounds like that's a direction that all the rest of you are interested in pursuing, if I'm hearing you correctly, that you'd like to see the meetings stay accessible via Zoom when we're in person. Am I correct on that?
I don't know about that, actually, because I'm wondering if it might be more feasible for the district to have the option of calling in, because I'm looking right now, we have a Zoom meeting going on. Right. There are 7 people watching the YouTube live channel, 7, and then there's 21 participants, including all the staff and board in the Zoom meeting. So there's, I believe, 2 non-district related staff attending the Zoom meeting right now. Okay. And if we're, so my question is if we're having a majority of community members watch it live via Zoom, would it be easier, and this would be a question for the district, is it easier to have a call-in option or a Zoom option for the district?
Okay, I see. So in other words, I mean, like a literally like a telephone line that comes in that gets broadcast in the boardroom. Is that what you mean? Okay.
If people cannot attend in person. Okay. If they don't feel comfortable attending in person, they could be telephone in, watching the YouTube live channel. Okay. Or one of our other live channels, and then telephone in.
Okay, so let's get a pulse kind of quickly here on what do the rest of you feel about that? Do you want us to, I mean, if 4 of us feel like we would like to at least explore that option, we can give direction to Dr. Wilson to say, what does it look like cost-wise, staffing-wise, infrastructure, equipment, to make our meetings more accessible in a somehow virtual path.
President Pelosi.
Yes.
President Pelosi, excuse me. But before you ask that question and take all of the board members down the road of potentially a path that is not feasible, okay. there's just a couple of pieces that Ms. Madrigal and I would like to address. So I'm going to ask her to go ahead and give you all a little bit more information around Zoom versus hybrid versus a call-in option that you're talking about, so that you have more information before you even ask more questions. So,
okay, great.
Ms. Madrigal, I'll let you go first, and then I'll follow up if needed.
Great. And Derek, if you want to unmute your mic and chime in if I'm missing anything as well. Derek handles the technology piece of this work. And I think that probably the first comment, I know that Trustee Simon wanted to understand more about the difficulty involved with the hybrid meeting. And it's because we have multiple platforms that we're streaming to right now. Right now, we're hosting a video on Zoom. We're also showing that same video on YouTube, and we're live streaming on channel 27. Typically, that channel 27 piece, which is a live channel, is something that it's not commonly used, and just throws another potential barrier in our way when we are doing these processes. So as far as the call-in option, there is, if you are watching on YouTube, which I am as well, and on Zoom, there is a slight delay in the streaming to YouTube. So if we were to have a call-in option, we would have to wait each agenda item for that lag time in order to capture those people who would like to call in. In addition, Zoom offers the video function, which we're all functioning on right now. And you also have the call-in option as well. And you can raise your virtual hand by doing so on the phone as well. So that's, people can already call in right now on the virtual line if they're not using their device to do so.
Thank you. And Derek, anything you would like to add from the technology standpoint?
Yeah, certainly. I think Erica covered most of the issues that we would run into with that sort of situation. We have, when we were really in pandemic mode and quarantine mode, looked at possible Zoom rooms for the boardroom. Something that would be usable even in the event that we were back in person, so we could have more remote participation. So I don't want to say it's not a possibility, but with what we have right now, Eric is absolutely correct. There would be a significant lag time for folks calling in who are only watching on YouTube, and I believe channel 27 as well. So it's a little bit of a hindrance. It makes it easier when we're in a situation like this with Zoom, because we can just have people join via the link, and it's very instantaneous and it's a little bit easier. But once we're in person and we start going into more of a hybrid setting, it does become significantly more difficult because there are so many moving pieces.
And so then also, President Pelosi, both you and Trustee Kerr brought up the issues of the attorneys and their interpretation of the Assembly bill. We don't know how long that Assembly bill will be in place. Meetings of the public, governing boards are governed by the Brown Act, and the expectation is that the meetings are in public for the public. And I applaud the five of you for working so diligently to have your meetings in person when our students and our teachers were in person. And I understand the challenges that others have, and I know that your desires to meet the expectations of a public meeting were truly why you were meeting in person. We do have a surge right now, and we are here, virtually. So, I don't know, none of us know, because the pandemic keeps changing on us as to when and or how long the executive orders, the Assembly bills will allow us to continue to meet virtually. And if necessary, we certainly can have staff do some additional work to, as Derek mentioned, develop those more comprehensive Zoom room to facilitate or streamline virtual meetings even more so than they already are.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Does that help clarify what you might be asking board members with regards to next steps with the format of the meeting, I think, at this time only?
I do have one more question. As I understand it, if we were to have a hybrid meeting with Zoom, if there was any possibility where we somehow lost the Zoom link or something happened, what I understand is the board meeting would have to stop until that was what Jeannie and I heard during this presentation at CSBA, is that if there was an interruption in the Zoom technology, that the board meeting itself would have to stop and not continue until the hybrid portion could continue. Is that your understanding? Have we heard that elsewhere, I believe?
That is also my understanding. Ms. Madrigal, is there something more that you'd like to add with regards to an interruption to a meeting?
No, I just think that it would be the board's desire to continue in the format with all parties present, regardless of whether or not it's legal to do so, I would say, or legally required to do so.
Okay, thank you. Trustees, any other follow-up thoughts or questions as we, Julio?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. What about channel 27? Do people still watch cable? I just a question. I don't have cable, so I don't really know, because as mentioned that we're on multi-platforms. Is that something that we're required to use, the channel 27, or is that an option that we could maybe get rid of if it would make it easier during that?
President Pelosi, may I ask Derek to respond to that question?
Of course.
We have in the past had several complaints when channel 27 was not working, so we do have, I don't know if it is, we have an audience on channel 27, and I believe it is in the district's interest to continue to broadcast the channel 27. There are folks who do watch.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Pelosi, I just wanted to add in regards to your comments about using the pathways that are already set in place, the grade level reps, the PT. Well, luckily, I am the co-secretary of the fifth grade PTG. So the last two meetings, the grade reps have sent out information regarding the meetings. I can't speak for the RLS or the high school, but now that will become part of the monthly information. We usually send it out the week of for at least the TK through fifth grade families will continue to get the information about the meetings, how to access, how to send in written comments, how to attend the meetings. So we are educating them a little bit. And I was thinking about the RLS bulletin, and we can have a conversation later with Principal Cox about perhaps adding that the board meeting is coming up using the bulletin, which goes out to every parent in English and Spanish at the RLS. So yes, finding a way to get the information out, but using the pathways we already have, and so parents aren't getting more texts and more emails.
Go ahead, Julio.
Following up with what Trustee Simon said, and I'm not familiar if ELAC does this, but ELAC would be a great place to have them talk about, some of the educating if parents aren't familiar, and that would be another easy fix or another easy thing to provide information to those parents. So I just thought of that.
I think that's great. Finding out who the presidents are of ELAC, and making sure that, do they have the meeting schedule? Do they have, do they know where to find our board docs online? So that's I'm going to make a note about that, Julio, because that's a great idea. And I mean, I really do like the FAQ. I think that's a digestible kind of document. Maybe we can, between the five of us, look around and see if we can find an example of one, and if we find something that maybe speaks to us, that's something that we can help create, have Dr. Wilson review it, and then then we can present that on our all school websites. I don't know how everybody feels about that, but maybe that's an option for us to consider. And I think I still think a video is great too. Again, it's we don't know what the magic thing is to get people to want to be a part of us. I think is it the time of meeting? Our meetings can be long. A lot of what we do is not super exciting as much as people may think that it is. It's a lot of just it's a business meeting. A lot of it is. So, but I do think that there is definitely room for some improvement that we could, work on outreach. I don't know how if we want to do something more about the translation topic at this particular juncture. Do we, I know that Dr. Wilson provided us, that there was with some information about Channel 27. If we wanted simultaneous interpretation, that was an initial investment of approximately $70,000 just to do that. And they cannot guarantee accurate translation. So I still feel like we if we have direction we want to give to staff, we got to hone it in a little bit more at this point, because I don't feel like we have really clear direction and maybe at this point we say we're going to work on the FAQ and we're going to work on the board corner that Maria referred to from Carmel Unified. But I need to get a little bit better sense of where everybody would like to go at this time. And Dr. Wilson, would you like to say something?
Yeah, may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
So each of you have some really thoughtful ideas, and each of you are really care, and you have a meeting coming up that involves your governance handbook. Okay. And the governance handbook is a place where you have protocols and you have actions that you do moving forward. Okay. So at this point, so many of the ideas have come up, and in the effort, in essence of time this evening, in lieu of taking the time to identify if 3 of you are in support of I think I have 20 plus different ideas, that in fact this could become a section in your governance handbook, and you do have a meeting coming up on Friday, February 4th to work on that just item. And so my suggestion would be that you take all of this work, and I have notes, you have notes, and we work with Babs Kavanaugh, who will be facilitating that meeting, to understand that you're interested in potentially including more logistics and ideas around communication and open lines of communication with the community.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson, for
absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds great. Trustees, everybody's good with that plan? I don't see Maria. Where'd you go, Maria? There you are. Okay, great. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Dr. Wilson, thank you for putting a nice packaging around that for us. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. And that meeting is a meeting of the public. So if community members are interested in what you're talking about with regards to the governance handbook and governance work, that is a public meeting also.
Great. Thank you. Okay. We will move forward, as they say. Thank you, Ms. Madrigal. Okay, item 10B, the adoption of Resolution 2122, recognizing the state of emergency and authorizing teleconference meetings pursuant to AB 361. I'm going to call on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Yes, you actually passed this in October, and I explained to you that it was now required in order to allow for virtual electronic meetings that there would be a monthly resolution. And I indicated that it would be on consent for all of the months following. There are some updates to this resolution, and so I wanted to point out that there are some updates. It's a little more detailed and gives additional authority for all of you to determine if you want to go into a virtual meeting, much like we are tonight. And it does talk about the fact that there is continuing a local emergency, a state and local emergency, and that it could potentially cause harm or to any of you or the community that would then take us to a virtual meeting. So I present this to you tonight and ask that you approve this resolution, and then it will go back into consent on a monthly basis. I don't think it needs to be called out monthly. So I do recommend approval of this resolution at this time.
You're muted, Lisa.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? No? Sorry, I can't see everybody for some reason there. I mean, I gotta try and finagle this. Okay. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2122? Recognizing the state of emergency and authorizing teleconference meetings as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. As most are in favor of the motion, I will ask Dr. Wilson to do a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Simon,
Aye.
Trustee Haug,
Aye.
Trustee Kerr,
Aye.
Trustee Olguin,
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carried. Next item is 10C, conduct the district of choice lottery. And I'll call on Dr. Wilson for that.
Sorry, here we go. Yes, thank you. President Pelosi, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. It said I was muted and I was not muted. As you all know, we are a district of choice district. This allows students from outside of our attendance area to apply to an objective lottery system for potential enrollment in our district. The application window was from September until November. Following that time period, Ms. Madrigal takes time to identify if any of the families fit into the priority areas. What you are seeing here is the chart indicating the number of applications in gray for each of the grade levels. And the total that have been received for 22-23 in green. And then red, the different priority areas, and first priority is given to siblings. Priority doesn't mean guarantee, it means that they have first priority. Second priority goes to English learners and free and reduced lunch, I believe. And then third priority is, English, free and reduced lunch meals. And then finally, children of military personnel. So you can see that that last column shows you a handful of families that do meet one or two or all three of those priority areas. We do use an electronic system to conduct the lottery. Ms. Madrigal has a computerized generated system that will take each of those priority areas and put them into a lottery number with student 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on. And she is going to do that at this time. Ms. Madrigal, do you have anything else that you would like to add?
No, I would like to remind the board that last year we implemented a new process where we weekly updated a chart that carried a census for each of our grade levels. So we will begin that process again on Monday, January 31st. That's when the District of Choice families are notified as to their spot on the wait list. And we will continue to update the website weekly with the current census as we get closer to that May 15th deadline date. And that's that notification date where we notify our families whether or not we are allowed to offer them a spot for the upcoming school year.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Ms. Madrigal. And so at this time, you are conducting the lottery, and the student numbers have been assigned, correct?
Correct. The student numbers are automatically assigned by SchoolMint, which is our online registration platform. And they also have a weighted lottery system. The applicant does declare whether or not they are eligible for priority number 1, 2, or 3, but that information is validated in our system before the lottery is run. And so that has been completed.
Thank you, Erica. And then your next step, I know, is to begin the process of notifying families of their spot on the list.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa, do you need to ask for public comment?
Yes, I do believe I do. So I'm going to, I got to have my handy dandy script. So Ms. Madrigal, thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No.
No? Okay. All right, thank you. All All right, we'll move on to, pardon me, I gotta find my place here. Here we go. Item 10D, adoption of resolution 2118, School Board Recognition Month. I'd like to call on Dr. Wilson.
Yes, this resolution brought to us by California School Boards Association, which is the association that you work very closely with in alignment for professional development and all aspects of the governing board. Is a resolution thanking and acknowledging board members for the work that you do on a daily basis to support the school district. Thank you on behalf of the school community, the employees and students. The five of you, as we saw just a few minutes ago, are very caring and supportive individuals that do everything you can every day to ensure that students get what they need. So I do ask that while this is about you, that you move forward and approve this resolution 2118 in recognition of you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Okay, one moment. All right. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions? Ms. Madrigal, can I ask you to refer back to the board doc screen, please? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is there a motion to approve the adoption of resolution 2118 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I will ask Dr. Wilson to request a roll call as most are in favor of the motion.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee O'Keen?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. We'll move on to item 10E, adoption of resolution 2119, recognizing the significance of Black History Month. And let's see, I will call on Dr. Wilson, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we do want to move forward with this resolution to acknowledge Black History Month. This, since 1926, educator Dr. Carter Worth, I'm sorry, since 1976, there has been an acknowledgement of the achievement and the heritage of Black Americans. And I just really want to acknowledge and identify that as a governing board and a school district, we do have a focus on equity and serving all students every day. And I would ask that the board embrace the notion of recognizing Black History Month. It is a focus on health and wellness, which is also in alignment with our LCAP and the work that we are doing this year. I will have reports for you in February as to what our schools, our principals, our students have engaged in to acknowledge and celebrate Black History Month. And so I do recommend approval of Resolution 2119.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I think I'll take a moment to read this resolution and then ask for public comment. Is that correct order to do that? I'm okay with that order? Okay. Resolution 2119 of the St. Helena Unified School District, recognizing the significance of Black History Month, February 2022. Whereas the month of February is officially celebrated as Black History Month, which dates back to 1926 when Dr. Carter Woodson declared it as an important time in February to recognize the heritage and achievement of Black Americans. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District supports the significance of Black History Month to honor the contributions of Black Americans in the nation's history, to learn more about the past, and to better understand the experiences that have shaped the nation. And whereas the governing board acknowledges that the national theme of Black History Month for 2022 is Black Health and Wellness, a theme that examines and acknowledges the work of Black scholars and medical practitioners to better understand what has been done and what is currently being done to counter the grave deficiencies in healthcare for Black people in America. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District recognizes that each student needs an opportunity to understand the common humanity underlying all people, to develop pride in their own identity and heritage, and to understand, respect, and accept the identity and heritage of others. And whereas the St. Helena Unified School District greatly values ethnic and racial diversity and believes it enriches and strengthens our nation. And now, therefore, it is resolved that the governing board of the St. Helena Unified School District hereby supports the proclamation of February 2022 as Black History Month in the St. Helena Unified School District and encourages all schools to commemorate this occasion with appropriate activities. This is passed. Excuse me. I'll wait on that. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Madrigal, for your fantastic toggling skills this evening. Great. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Can't see. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of resolution 2119 as presented?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution 2119 as presented.
Is there a second?
Can we let Macy do her preferential vote?
Macy is lost connection with us, so she won't be joining us. So I'm sorry that I forgot to mention that. I apologize.
Sorry.
So is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you request a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 10F is the request for approval to update the list of current board policy titles. Dr. Wilson, please.
Yes, in working with CSBA and their update to board policies, we work diligently to align our board policies with their recommendations. And what you see before you are changes to the title only for a number of policies that we have currently in place. The content is not changing, the title is changing. And as you look at those titles, I think that they make more sense and they will be easier for our users to find. And so at this time, I do recommend that we adopt the new titles to the current board policies we have in place listed on the screen.
Thank you. Is there anyone who's present who would wish to publicly comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the list of current board policy titles as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you request a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Olguin.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, on to item 11A. I would like to remind the board that this is a written report. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No.
No. Okay. All right. We'll move on to 11C. 2021 presentation of the St. Helena Unified Data Zone Social Emotional Survey data. I'd like to call on Mrs. Mary Allen.
Thank you, Erica. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Wilson. I'm delighted to present the data tonight. So what you have in front of you, Erica, I'm not sure, I can't see the slides if you don't mind putting those up. We'll just take a moment, folks. Thank you, Erica. What you have in front of you is the PowerPoint on a survey that we've administered to our students 3rd through 12th grade this school year in November. We normally do a Healthy Kids survey, and that survey is normally October. It's now changed to March, and that's a once-a-year survey. We've added another survey on, and it's out of a company called DataZone, an organizational platform. And so this is the first year that we've administered this survey as well, just to make sure that we have additional data on student voice and student perception. So next slide, please, Erica. So we're going to talk about social and emotional learning. You're going to hear a lot of the acronym of SEL. That's social and emotional learning. And why does it matter? We consider these soft skills. So as we teach academics in the school setting, we've now known for years that we also need to focus on the soft skills or the social and emotional learning components of a student, because it helps them manage their emotions, understand their emotions, achieve positive goals, show empathy and how to show empathy to others, and gain perception of how they handle situations, social situations, positive relationships, how to make those relationships, how to handle a conflict. There's just so many things that happen with social emotional learning, and this is really important that we teach it within the school setting. We know that parents are the first instructor of SEL skills in the home. They have the majority of the time, but we've also noted that society has changed, and there's a lot more where parents have to do at home, to where they're working 2 jobs, or perhaps they just don't have the time to do all the skill building that necessarily needs to happen. And so it falls on the schools, and we're delighted to be able to do this. So this is why SEL matters. Next slide, please. What we are working on is, this comes out of, we're not just pulling this out of the air, we actually are following some research and evidence-based practices out of CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And this particular framework kind of gives you a roadmap of what needs to happen within the school setting as far as SEL instruction, classroom climate, school-wide cultures and practices. And all of that ties in with the competencies that we want our students to walk out of high school with. One of those competencies are self-awareness. Another one is self-management, responsible decision-making, social awareness, and relationship skills. So when we gave the survey this year in November, those are the areas that we focused on based on the CASEL framework. Next slide.
Just one moment, Mary. I'm having some difficulties here.
While Erica's doing that, this falls under one of the state priorities. The state has 8 priorities that we need to focus on within a school setting, which we should be focusing on in a school setting. And one of those has to do with student engagement as well as school climate. And so this falls under that particular component when we're looking at SEL development for students. How do we measure SEL in our district? We look at the Healthy Kids survey. We're now looking at the DataZone survey. Also discipline data, student panel. We want to get a lot of student voice, our attendance data, our mental health data. There's a variety of pieces of data that we use to collect this information to help us plan on what our tasks are going to be, or what our implementation is going to be in the LCAP from year to year to year. Next slide. It's okay, Erica. It's going a little slow. Good to see everybody. So what's going to be presented? Okay, here we go. So for this particular survey, we had, as you can see, great student participation. At the high school, anything above 80% gives us an accurate read on what students are thinking. So I'm pleased with getting that result from the high school at 84%. And then you can certainly see RLS in the elementary school in reference to the students that participated in this survey. Next slide. And when you're looking at this, there's many, many slides here. And I just want to point out a few things on each one of the slides. So as we were talking about those 5 components of the competencies, this falls under school management, school setting. So how you read this is it's the percent of students that agree with the statements that are below. And one of the statements, I'm just going to look at a couple of them so you know how to read it, is that I work hard in school. So at the high school, that's 73% of the students stated that they work hard at school. At RLS, it's 79% state that they work hard at school, and 85% state that they work hard at school. And then I'm just going to go down and just look at, I come to class prepared. So we have above 80% across the board that come to class prepared. That's good data for us to know, and it's also good data for us to find out of when they state only 73% work hard at school, what does that mean to them? And so this helps us develop some of our student panel questions as we move forward. Next slide. Here's another self-awareness under that particular component. This is the percent of students who agree with this statement. I want to be a good student. So you look at this and you know that our students want to be good students across the board. And I think every child comes to school wanting to do their best. And if they're feeling like they are not doing their best, why is that happening? Why do they not want to be a good student? Is it because they really don't feel like they have the skill set or not? Again, this is good data for us to dig a little deeper and get some more details from the students on. But looking at this data, I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing. I think when I look at the elementary school and it says 83%, it's how they interpret, I want to be a good student. So it's again, good for us to dig deeper, and the sites are going to dig deeper on these questions. Next slide. Again, percent who agree with I can get smarter. This is great, above 80%, because this is your mindset. I don't know how many times that, perhaps if you're an older person, you thought that you weren't good at math or you weren't good at science. This tells us that our kids think that they can get smarter, that it's not just fixed mindset, that they're just not going to get any smarter in a subject. It tells us here that our kids do think that they can get smarter. Next slide. Again, you can read this all the way down, but I like looking at these questions, and I've only pulled a few of these questions. Each site has their multiple questions. Students had to fill out around 56 questions. And the sites have those answers, and they'll be working with those answers at their school sites. So you can see these questions on the bottom. Next slide. Classroom setting, self-awareness. When I see this particular statement of I feel comfortable asking questions, you can see that at the elementary school they certainly do, and then it goes down as you get into middle and high school. Those are probing questions for us to ask a little more. Developmentally, it seems kind of where they're at, where they don't want to really speak their minds, or they don't feel comfortable, or they'll be made fun of, or who knows what the answer is in their head. But these are probing questions for us to ask again. And I think the other one that's on the other side, where it says I'm comfortable asking my teacher for help, is a really nice thing to look at as well. And again, another probing question for us. So this doesn't stop here. This is the beginning for each one of our sites. Next slide. You can see this responsible decision making. The only thing I wanted to point out on this one is I think of different ways to solve a problem. And these are students who agree with this, the percentage of students who agree with this. I think that's great. That again gets away from that fixed mindset and realizes that there's multiple ways to solve problems. Next slide. School social awareness, school setting. Again, this data will help us research a little deeper with the kids. I feel like I belong in school. The last one down there, you can see that we have some students that don't feel like they belong in school. What does that mean? You know, from a student's mindset, what does that mean? And we really want to probe deeper at the middle school and high school level to see why they're feeling that way. Again, you can read the rest of those questions, and please take a moment to do that when you have time. Next slide. Relationship skills. I think the one thing I wanted to point out on this one is that we have a lot of empathetic students, and I think about other students' feelings on that first chart below, and you can see the elementary is at 86 all the way up to 79, close to 80%. I can honestly, every single principal on this call and all of the school administrators on this call and people that are in the school system know that we have great kids. We have great kids across the board. And this just gives it an example of why. They're just very caring, and they do care about each other, and they do care about this community, and they do care about their families. So next slide. Student reflections. These are the last 3 slides, which I think are important. When we have a student, we want to ask them at school, I learn about things I might do when I grow up. Are we doing some career ed at the lower grades and at the middle school level and at the high school level? And here you can see this is based on student numbers, not percentages. So we had 123 kids that state that, yeah, I learn about things that I want to do when I grow up. And then you can see neutral, and then you can see 48 that disagree. And then when you get over to the other side of the slide for the elementary school, the things I learn in school will help me in the future. And so you have a large number of students that agree with that statement. So that's a good thing for us. Next slide. RLS, you can see my work in middle school is preparing me to be successful in high school. We really want to make sure that we are doing that and students have that perception. They understand that what they're learning will help them as they move into high school and transition, so they could have success at the high school level. And then you can read the other one as well. Next slide. And then at the high school level, again, they have many slides that they're going to be talking about as a faculty over at the high school, middle school, and elementary school. But I like this one. This particular slide. Students like me are supported in my classes. So 271 students are staying, absolutely. And then we have neutral. What does neutral mean? And so that'll be Ben and Greg's, and our leadership class to figure out what does that mean when you said neutral. And then also students like me can succeed in my classes, 297. So for me, when I was going through all this data on the school sites, I was very pleased with a lot of the information I was seeing that our students were giving us. And also it gave us avenues of where we need to explore more to get some more answers. Next slide. Any questions, please?
Thank you so much, Mary. First, I'm going to ask if there's any public comment on this. Anybody who's present who would publicly, hold on. Let me just get my mouth to work here. Is there anybody present who would publicly like to make, oh my gosh, hold on. Erica, can you bring up the script, please? My tongue is tied, and I'm going to ask for public comment is what I'm going to ask for first. Okay, trustees, questions for Mary Ellen?
Yeah, I have a question for Mary Ellen. You mentioned that this is just a starting point with some of the probing questions, and one of them that stood out to you that also stood out to me was, I'm comfortable asking my teacher for help. I feel comfortable asking for help, and how there was a sharp decline between the elementary school to the RLS and the high school. And what type of, this being the starting point, do you have a timeline of addressing those probing questions? And if you could just briefly walk me through the process of addressing how much time do you need to address that to start making change?
I can honestly say that all the sites have this data, so they're first going to present it to their faculty in their faculty meeting and have that discussion with the faculty so they know how students are responding. And then we are in the process of creating student panels. So each one of the principals at the middle school and high school will be having several student panels that they'll be asking questions related to wellness for this year, but there'll also be other side conversations that the counselor, that the principal, that the teachers will have with all the students related to some of those questions that are coming up, like, why was this the answer? What were you thinking as a group? But again, kids at middle school are very, a little more, having been a middle school principal, they're a little more closed in. So it happens better in a small group setting. So I'm sure they're going to probe towards a more small group setting, and it'll be happening immediately, Laura. As soon as they meet with their faculty and present this information, I know the principals will come up with a plan of how we're going to get some more information from this, and then they'll share it back, and they'll also create a plan.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustees, anybody else?
I have the one that stood out the most for me was students are treated equally when they break school rules. And the answers for that were surprisingly low, kind of across the board with all schools. That was a surprise for me, but it is a perception that we really, it's clear that we have to address that. Why do students feel that way? And then I think it even more clearly emphasizes the need for the equity work that we're doing. I really, I'm wondering if we have data that would show that this is a perception and not a reality, that could be presented at some future date, because that was the one data point that stood out the most for me.
In the background, I know you can't see me right now, but my head is shaking because that stood out to me as well. But this has been something we've seen in the past with our students, that they've stated that. We are looking at asking it in our student panels this year for the LCAP, with a little more of, how do you know? What do you see? How does that make you feel? So getting a little more deeper into, is this a perception? Are you actually seeing things, or you know for sure this is happening? So really understanding that more. And as I said, this will probably be one of our questions within the student panel this year.
Thank you.
Julio, do you have any questions? Or Jeannie?
Yes, I'll go. First, I just want to start out, Mary, thank you for sharing this. I'm in total agreement of how important these skills are, and how we can teach the kids these skills at school, and how important they are for future use. I just had a question about the slide 15, the student reflections. The question you asked the middle schoolers was, my work in middle school is preparing me to be successful in my education after high school. I was curious, did you guys ask that to the high schoolers? Because I think it would be interesting to get the high school perspective, and see what they feel like, if what they're learning is preparing them for life after high school. So I don't know if they were asked that question and you just didn't present it, or it was just different questions that were presented to each school.
My screen just went a little weird there. Sorry about that. Yes, it is asked, and okay. It's, are you prepared for post-secondary? And there's a bunch of questions on the high school survey that Ben will certainly down the road present some additional information from his site.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Trustee Kerr, anything you?
I don't have any questions. My questions have been answered. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Most of my questions have been answered as well. I think one thing that stood out to me was on slide 12. There is at least one adult at my school that I can talk to about my problems. I had a recollection that on like the Healthy Kids survey that number was higher in years past. No doubt the pandemic has probably caused that shift a bit because kids were online learning versus being in person. So it'll be interesting to see if that changes as things resume and get back to what maybe it looked like pre-COVID. And I'm just wondering, Mary, if you had any insight off the top of your head as to maybe why another reason for that shift.
I don't have, I think I first wanted to put out that this is the pre-survey. We will be doing a similar survey of Data Zone at the end of the year. So this will give us a pre and a post information on these questions. You know what? I think we have a lot of resources out there, but our kids are feeling extremely, I'm going to just say it, there's a generalized anxiety out there. It's among the staff, it's among the students, it's the unpredictability of we're kind of playing normal, but we're not normal yet in society. And so there's still unpredictability. Predictability creates security for kids. So there's some insecurities. I think that students at the middle school and high school are a little more closed up than what they normally are. So I do think we need to look at that a little closer because they are closing the parameters around themselves a little more. So those are things of concern, Lisa. That's just my perception.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. It was great, and I love that it's there's a pre and a post, so that we'll look forward to hearing what happens there at the end of the school year. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, trustees, everybody ready to move on? Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Miss Magical, as always. Okay. Item 12A, the consideration of approval for resolution 2123, skipping and competence criteria. I'd like to call on Mr. Chris Heller.
Yes, good evening. The board is asked to approve this resolution 2123, which establishes the skipping and bumping process for certificated employees in the district in alignment with California Education Code 44955D. This process allows employees who have less seniority but more experience in particular areas of need to skip a more senior employee in the event of a layoff. The conditions for potential district needs are listed within the resolution of which this situation may occur. Again, we don't anticipate a need for this, but however, it's always good practice for us to annually update and approve this resolution. So I would ask that the governing board do that this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. Is there anyone participating who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? All right, is there a motion to approve the adoption of resolution 21-23 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the adoption of resolution 2123 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you perform a roll call vote?
Yes, Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Hout?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. On to 12B, consideration of approval for resolution 21-24, order of layoff for certificated employees and tie-breaking criteria. Mr. Heller, please.
Yes, and similar to resolution 2123, we're asking for the approval of this resolution 2124 to establish an order of layoff of certificated employees in the district in alignment with California Education Code 44955B. In previous years, we have not exercised the need for layoffs in March, but we're wise to continue this practice annually to establish criteria for seniority should an unforeseen financial event occur which would require layoffs. This would establish the order for people that have, or employees that have the same date of hire. So this would establish that criteria that would trigger the order of layoffs should we need to exercise that. Again, we aren't anticipating that, but it's a good practice for us to do this annually.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item? Okay. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-24 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you perform a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Olguin.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carried. 12C, the initial sunshine proposal from St. Helena Unified School District to SHTA for collective bargaining negotiations. Mr. Heller again, I believe.
Yes. The current 3-year collective bargaining agreement with St. Helena Teachers Association expires June 30th of 2022. District staff will begin the negotiation process with SHTA leadership in the spring to develop the next agreement. In preparation for these negotiations, the district is required to share articles of interest in our negotiations process known as sunshining to be transparent and clear with our intentions. The district is seeking approval to open all articles of the collective bargaining agreement for the negotiations process. I would ask that the board approve this.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Is there a motion to approve the sunshine proposal from SHUSD to St. Helena Teachers Association for collective bargaining negotiations as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you call a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Olguin.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 12D, initial sunshine proposal from St. Helena Unified School District to CSEA number 287 for collective bargaining negotiations. Mr. Heller again, please.
Yes, very similar to the previous agenda item. The collective bargaining agreement with CSCA chapter number 287 does expire on June 30th. We are going to request that we sunshine all the articles in their collective bargaining agreement as well. And those negotiations will begin in the spring. So I would ask that the board approve sunshining of all those articles.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item? Is there a motion to approve the sunshine proposal from St. Helena Unified School District to CSEA number 287 for collective bargaining negotiations as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you call a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Trustee Simon.
Aye.
Trustee Haug.
Aye.
Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Olguin.
Aye.
President Pelosi.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 13A is the St. Helena Unified School District Business Operations Quarterly Update. I'd like to remind the trustees that this is a written report. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions about this agenda item?
No, I don't. I really like that format, though. It was great. I love the pictures.
Yeah, I said the same thing. I think that's great. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Andy. I appreciate that.
Gone into the report.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to 14A, business operations. If you could scroll up a little bit, thank you. Or review and consider approval of the 2020-21 audit report. I'd like to call on Miss Andy Steps.
Thank you. And this is our annual audit report, and I'm pleased to report that we just had one non-material finding, which was related to our annual instructional minutes public hearing, which took place during the October 8th, 2020 regular board meeting. And we were supposed to post notices in public places, which was not possible because the district staff was under mandatory evacuation orders at the time. And the auditors very clearly understand that, but they're required by the state to go ahead and give us a finding anyway. But I still consider this a very successful audit. We didn't have any other findings, and it was a very challenging year with new COVID-related funding and so forth. And so I really want to thank our district office staff and our site staff for all of their efforts that went into another great audit report. And so the next step will be we submit this to the County Office of Education, and they will have me do a very simple corrective action form for the one finding, which will probably be on the February agenda for review and approval.
Okay. Great, thank you so much. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item?
I actually have a comment. I just want to, the fact that the audit only had the one finding that something wasn't posted during the glass fire, I really think that our administrative team is doing just a fantastic job with all the challenges that have been going on this past year, and want to thank them.
I agree. It was like definitely a round of applause on that. So thank you very much to you, Andy, and your team for that. That's great.
And I agree. Excellent work by all. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the 2020-2021 audit report as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, will you call a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Excuse me. Okay, so we're on to 14B. Review and public input regarding the district's updated COVID-19 prevention program plan and safe return to in-person instruction plan. You could like to call on no, I'm not. Pardon me, Mrs. Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. And it's a contingency of receiving our ESSER 3 funding that we have the board review these plans in right now in January. However, these plans reflect changes to the COVID-19 guidance as of mid-December. And so there's been some changes since then. So the board will expect to see these revised once more and brought back to them for the for review during the February board meeting as well.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions about this agenda item?
So it sounds like it'll come back for a vote then in February. Is that correct, Andy?
That's a good question. The board is really just required to review.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. But with that said, we'll bring them back for review again in February just because I need to make some more updates to them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy.
Could it be a continual review of something we might actually see almost every month, or?
Well, it just depends on how rapidly the guidance changes because of the surge that occurred this winter. That's why we've seen more changes to the guidance. And so hopefully things will stabilize a little bit and we won't need to bring these back to you for review very often. But we will be required to do it at least every 6 months by virtue of receiving these COVID funds.
Thank you. Okay, item 14C, review and consider approval of contracts over $25,000. Mrs. Andy Stubbs, please.
Thank you. And we just have one contract for the board to consider this evening, and that would be for Promethean boards for the elementary school. This would be part of our Future Ready Classrooms program. And we have the opportunity to use some COVID relief funds to purchase these. So we're moving ahead a little bit more quickly than we had planned, than we would be moving if it weren't for receiving those funds. And so we're asking the board to approve moving forward on this quotation for the boards. And then we're going to be working with the school site to determine if they're going to be wall mounted or cart mounted. And so we're having the board approve an amount that's just a little bit higher than needed so that we can cover those mounts.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions on this agenda item?
I have a quick question, and is it just and so like when will these be mounted or installed into the rooms? When is the thought?
I'm hoping during the summer. At first, we were concerned about the delivery timeline, but I think we'll be able to get them in time and resolve the mounting decisions and then get them installed either before or during the summer.
That's great. Perfect. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Julio?
Andy, can you remind me, would this be the last school that would have the Prometheans, or did the other schools have, everyone have Prometheans? Or, because I know the RLS in the high school, but there's and I've seen some at the primary, but I'm not sure if the entire primary school is.
They're at the primary school. We probably still need to look at some departments at the high school. Our last project with the high school covered the English language arts classrooms with the sense at that time that it wasn't needed as urgently in some of the other departments there. So we're going to want to circle back to the high school and see where else we might want to place them.
Thank you.
Trustee Simon, any questions? No. Okay. Excuse me. Is there a motion to approve the contracts over $25,000 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the contracts over $25,000 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor of the motion, Dr. Wilson, please call the vote.
Is Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 15A, future agenda items. You'll see there the list in front of you for the February 17th, 2022 regular board meeting. Are there any questions or comments about the upcoming agenda?
No, but I was wondering, since we'll be meeting February 4th to discuss part of it will be to discuss communication, the conversation we had tonight about 10A. Should we put an update on there? Is that the appropriate time to do that, or would that be too soon to continue the conversation?
It may be too soon. From February 4th to 17th, Dr. Wilson, do you have any insight on that?
I do. Typically, when there are changes made to the governance handbook, that does require formatting and typing, and typically that does take a little bit of time. So the actual governance handbook that would be potentially reaffirmed by all of you would likely come to you at the March board meeting. That is to say, the official changes would be approved in March then. If you wanted to give a verbal update, that would be up to you, President Pelosi. And you could make that determination following the February 4th meeting prior to preparing the agenda for February.
Okay, I think that sounds like a reasonable way to go. Trustees, would you support that at this time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Okay, then we'll move forward to the next item, which is adjournment 16. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
As most are in favor, Dr. Wilson, please call the vote.
Yes, Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin? President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Meeting ended at 8:25 p.m. Thank you all for being here tonight in this format, especially and to Dr. Wilson and staff. Erica, magical, you really kept me on task tonight. So thank you very much for all your efforts behind the scenes. Appreciate that. Stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.